In this video, we're going to talk about proportional relationships, and we're going to talk about how to graph them. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is the key idea or the main idea today? Well, when two quantities, x and y, are proportional, the relationship is represented by the direct variation equation y equals mx. And the graph is a line, and you can see that in my picture over here. My graph is the line that passes through the origin. Now, remember, that's kind of a vocabulary word that I need to remember, but origin is referring to, it goes through this ordered pair 0, 0, right here at the center of my graph. All the graphs that we graph today are going to begin at that origin because we have a proportional relationship. So let's go ahead and look at our first example. So if I wanted to graph the proportional relationship y equals 2x, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to remember two things. I'm going to remember what this 2 stands for. Now, if it's been a minute since you've talked about slope and equations, you should know that this 2 represents m, which is the same as our slope, which we've been talking a lot about, how to calculate that slope. Remember, that is the rise over the run. So in order to graph my proportional relationship, what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin at the origin. Notice that this fits into that category of equation that we were just talking about, y equals mx. So my graph is going to start at the center. So in your example that you're drawing in your notebooks right now, make sure you draw a graph that goes from 1 to 10 in all directions. Pause the video if you need. Time to graph that. And then put a dot at the center of the origin. Okay, that's my first step. Step number 2 is to find my, is to use my slope to get to the next point. Now my slope is 2. But remember, slope isn't just a whole number, it's a fraction. It's the rise over the run. So how am I going to convert that to a fraction? Well, remember, whole numbers are just fractions in disguise with a 1 in the denominator. So 2 simplifies to, or it changes to rather 2 over 1. Remember, 2 means I'm going to move up 2 because that is my rise. And 1 is a positive 1, so I'm going to move in the right direction. So go to your graph that we've just graphed. Go to that center dot that we just plotted, and we are going to use our rise and our run to get to the next point. So I'm going to rise 2 spaces, 1, 2, and run 1 space, 1. And my next dot goes here. I'm going to continue that pattern just one more time so that I can get some length on my graph and count up 1, 2 spaces and over 1. And plot a new point. And to finish up my graph, I'm going to connect the dots to make a line. And arrows on both sides showing me that it continues. So this is my graph of the equation y equals 2x. And if you notice on my graph, all right, let's look at another example. So again, I have an equation in that y equals mx format. Remember that that means that my slope is proportional and my graph starts at the origin. So where's that origin? Again, pause the video if you need time to make another graph. We're going to do another example. Where is that origin? It's at the center of my graph, so I'm going to make a dot at the center of my graph. And then I'm going to use my slope. Remember, my slope is the number in front of x, -5. I'm going to use my slope to find my next point. But remember, slope needs to be a fraction. So -5 turns into -5 over 1. All whole numbers are a fraction with a 1, an imaginary 1 in the denominator. So let's go ahead and remember what this information tells us. Remember, slope is the rise over the run. Well, what do I do if my rise, -5, hey, is not positive, it's negative? Remember, that means I'm going to go down. And a positive one means I'm going to go to the right. So put your pencil back on that center dot, and we're going to go down, count down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and to the right 1, and plot a point. And I can do that 2 times to extend my line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1, and plot my point. And if I connect my dots and put my arrows on the end, I have my line. All right, try this next one on your own. Click pause, and when you're ready, go ahead and press play. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on this one. Remember, my line is in the format y equals mx, which means I start at the origin. So that's the very first dot I'm going to draw. And then I'm going to identify my slope. My slope is 4. And I'm going to convert my slope into a fraction. 4 over, remember all whole numbers have a denominator of 1. Once I have determined my slope as a fraction, I'm going to remind myself what directions to count. 4 is positive, so I'm going to count up. 1 is positive, so I'm going to count to the right. Going to my origin, we're going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the right 1, plot a point. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, to the right 1, and plot a point. And there's my graph. Last example, try this one on your own, and then so pause the video and check when you're ready. All right, my equation is in that y equals mx format, which means I'm going to start at the origin again. So plotting my point at the origin, I'm going to identify my slope. It's -8. I'm going to turn it into a fraction, -8 over 1. And then I'm going to give myself directions to go. So remember, negative means I go down, and positive means I'm going to go to the right. So down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and over 1. Now I don't have enough room on my graph to extend the line, but you can just go in reverse. So instead of extending this line further down, I can extend this line up by counting in reverse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and backwards 1. There with the end arrows on the end, I have my graph. All right, if you have any questions, please reach out. I am more than happy to help, and have a great day.